Welcome to the Black on Shelf podcast, a podcast championing Black and brown entrepreneurs on the digital and physical shelves. I'm your host, Tanaj Ferguson. This is Black on Shelf. And how I love to start the podcast is a little bit about how I discovered a brand or what my first experience with a brand was. And for me, I believe it was seeing some news that you were starting to be in retailers. Well, for one, during the pandemic, I started to really aggressively look at brands, look at Black brands. That's a big reason why this podcast exists, because I was looking for a way to actually document some of that and really tell the stories of the people behind the brands. That was the part I was most interested in. And I just realized your brand and how beautiful and appealing it was for me. And I was like, who is behind this brand? We need to talk to this girl. We need to talk to this woman. And there we go, finding sustainability and with paper, such a beautiful cause. And now you're able to be here. And I'd love to jump in and talk about your background and then lead into your origin story, because that really is a lot of who you are influences what you do.
Exactly.
So talk to us about who you are and how that turned into you building what you're building.
Yes. So
with IO Paper Company.
So like I said, I'm born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. So this is my home. And growing up, my father is an entrepreneur. So from a young age, and I was young enough to remember when he really made that transition. He's a teacher and he started, with his side hustle at first. And then over time, I watched him, save money and be able to do his side gig into full-time and be a full-time entrepreneur. And watching him being able to use, his business to put both me and my brother in school and to buy multiple homes and just create a life for himself where, he had the freedom of time and the freedom to, do things on his own terms and to be involved in his children's lives. So that was really my inspiration growing up. And it made me realize, I really want to have my own business. But at that point, when I was younger, I didn't really know what I wanted to do necessarily. But I ended up going to Fordham. I was originally there for business school. I was a marketing major.
Okay.
But I quickly realized that it was not for me. I love business, of course, but I think that I was in a more creative mindset then. So I ended up studying new media and digital design, and that's where I discovered design and realized that this is something that I really wanted to pour more of myself into. So I graduated from there, and I was working at a contemporary art museum in New York for 2 years. And during that time, I went from, just doing communications to being first full-time graphic designer there since the 80s. So that was a really important transition for me, to be young, 2 years out of school, and to be the head designer at an institution. And it just kind of gave me the confidence that I needed to, feel okay, maybe I can go and start my own business. So that's a good transition into, what happens. So I started my business in 2019, but I had started thinking about it late 2018. And throughout all of that time, my mantra is nothing without intention. So, I was thinking about what is the business that I want to create? What impact do I want it to have? And how does it align with, my values and where I see myself going? So that's when I started to think about, the product came about first. I've always really loved stationery and greeting cards as a way to show your love for someone, show your gratitude, just, let people know that you're thinking about them. And I always love writing notes to my friends will always say birthday cards. I always write long messages all inside. I get blank cards so I can write my heartfelt message.
Aww.
So, and I really love print design. I think that, it's something that is kind of a lost art. A lot of designers now work for screens and digital. And I was really excited by, the tactile nature of print design and how different the skill set is. I really realized that, that was something that I wanted to lean more into. And I decided stationery because it was something that I loved. And throughout that, like I said before, thinking about what is the mission and what is the impact going to be, I had also been going through, this phase of my life where I was, out on my own in the world for the first time after graduating college and realizing I have to make a lot of decisions about my life and what I want to do, what my values are, what's important to me. And I realized that Earth wasn't a part of my life, thinking about nature, the environment, what am I putting into my body and what am I doing, to give back to the Earth? That wasn't a part of my life growing up, really. but it was something that I wanted it to be. So that was why sustainability became a part of it, you know, through my own research, just like knowing that climate change and the environment, like those are things that we don't really talk about in the Black community, I feel. And we're the ones that are most affected by it. Like we have higher rates of asthma, and that's because we're breathing in this polluted air. And it's, you know, just something that I thought that Aya Paper Co. could be a way to start those conversations and to make conversations about the environment and climate change more accessible to our people, and in a way that doesn't feel like, you know, outsiders coming in and telling you what you need to do, but just, you know, giving, here's an option for a sustainable swap that you can make in your own life, and hopefully to encourage people to think about, you know, how they can be more conscious consumers and different decisions that they can make in their everyday lives that don't feel, you know, overwhelming.
Yeah. No, I love how your story really intertwines with you know, your experiences. Do your friends remember the handwritten or hand designed cards you would make? And how do they feel now that you have cards on the shelf? Are they still getting these handwritten cards?
Yes. Okay. They all still get their cards from me. If they get a card, sometimes I'll give an Aya Paper Co card, but I love other brands still too. So sometimes I'll give them other cards, and they're like, why didn't you give me an Aya one? They get personally offended if they don't get one of these.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's funny because a lot of the cards also in the beginning, a lot of people don't know this, but the designs that I created, like the first set, came from actual messages between me and my friends and my loved ones. So like our bestseller card, you're so smart and strong and beautiful, the world is lucky to have you. That message a friend sent to me when I was having a hard time. And I remember getting it. This is before I was even a thought. I just screenshotted it and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I need to keep this and hold on to it for something. And I started to do
some
that.
type of way, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just like, it was something it was planting the seed, I think, you know, and there were other ones too that are more lighthearted, like you a bad girl and your friend bad too. That's
yes.
Yes, exactly.
We all need to give that one to a friend on a good day.
Exactly. So, you know, it's really exciting for me to take these things that are so authentic and raw and just like part of my life, and to be able to put that, you know, on shelves, and so that, you know, other people can see this and, you know, share it with their loved ones.
Yeah. What does Aya mean?
So Aya, it actually has so many different meanings, but the way that I came up with that name is actually, it's based on a childhood nickname my family still calls me. And I just like took a letter off to create Aya, because in the beginning I was so like trying to figure out the name. I was like going back and forth for months trying to find something. And, you know, I was trying to make it not about me. That's why it was hard. I was like, let me find a name or something that, you know, has some other meaning. And it ended up coming back to being about me, which I think is good in a way. That's something that I know other entrepreneurs sometimes struggle with, is like wanting it to be about the product and the business and not so much ourselves. But the more that I've been in the business, the more I've realized that, you know, it's okay and it's important sometimes to put yourself, you know, as the face of the brand. You know, it makes it relatable, and people, you know, they want to know who is the person that's creating these things that they love.
Yeah, I think especially in the Black and brown space, like that is actually one thing that's so appealing, particularly for Aya, SaVonne. Like one thing that really resonates with me with all your cards is how it feels like it's talking to me, right? That voice that we're so familiar with, the type of words we use, it's so relatable. And that's something that was missing in the cards, greeting card space and the gifting space. So you really found this opportunity to talk like another sister would talk, or talk like a family member would talk. And that was interesting. I'm curious how that part, when you thought about the landscape, what was your way of thinking? What sort of sparked you about, this is a real opportunity for me?
Yes, I think that exactly what you said about like the lack of authenticity is something that I felt was missing from the shelves. You know, there's so many, you know, great Etsy brands and like smaller people, you know, are creating these things that feel really authentic. But I think that, you know, there's this gap between, you know, the things that you can get individually, but it's a hassle, you know, to find them on Etsy, to work with these different sellers, versus, you know, being able to walk in a store, going onto, you know, a website where they have all these options. So I think that, you know, for me, from the beginning, I knew that I wanted it to be a large, accessible brand, because that's what it's about to me. It's not just about being large for the sake of being large, but it's about giving more people the opportunity to find it in their local gift shop or in their local corner store, like wherever it is that you can like find it. And every community is different. So like, it's important for me to be on the shelves at, you know, Nordstrom and Macy's, but it's also just as important to be in local stores. And that's the magic of I feel like that, we're able to fit in all these different landscapes because everybody loves things that are real and feel authentic.
Yeah, when you look at your stockists, you see you have a number of local or smaller stores where people are looking for something more unique. And now you're also expanding. You're in Macy's and Kohls.
Right.
And I hope that list continues to grow. Talk to us about your first retail store that you secured, whether it was a local, it probably was a local one. And then talk to us the milestone. Talk to us about that milestone of getting the larger store. So kind of juxtapose the small one where you were at that point in time, and then what led to you getting one of the bigger ones.
Yes. So in the beginning, actually, we were getting lots of inquiries from people. Well, this time was just me. I was getting a lot of email inquiries, like end of 2019, that first holiday season after we launched. There were so many people wondering if we had holiday cards or if we could do wholesale. And at that point, we weren't offering it. And I had no idea how to even start thinking about wholesale. So I took some time. And once I left my job in February of 2020, that was kind of
we're going to get to that part because you documented this and I want to talk to you about that. So we're going to put a pin there and come back to that. I want to cover that too.
Yes. So when I had left my job, that was the time I was like, okay, I'm doing this full time now. I have more capacity. Let's go into wholesale. And I brought on one of my friends, Jaquasia. She's still on the team as our brand partnerships coordinator. So she came on to really focus on wholesale and to take, some of these ideas I had and really execute on them. And she really took what I had and just blew it up out of the water. Wow. So, we started with these smaller retailers. Like the first thing was we needed a line sheet. So she was like, okay, I'm going to do new photos. So we have standard images and editing this line sheet. Then now we can pitch ourselves. So it was like a lot of that work on the back end at first of like figuring out, what do we want to eat? What do we want this to even look like? Like, what are our standards and expectations? Like, what are our goals through this partnership? And that was when I identified, like I said before, about wanting to be accessible. Mm-hmm. And that's why, we said, we'll start small, but we want to be in the big stores too. Yeah. So the first few ones, it was really exciting. There was so much trial and error, I think, on our end of like, we have to package things for retail now and like learning how to talk to these other businesses and realizing what is it that they want from this partnership and learning how to stand out from the crowd. Mm-hmm. So it was really exciting to get we grew that long list of small stores pretty quickly. It was like by July, I feel like we had maybe reached like 30 stores.
So were you like knocking on doors, sending emails, visiting? What was your method at the beginning?
So that's the thing. Yeah. This is gonna kind of going back to me leaving in February, but COVID started March 2020. So everything was really online and it was really challenging because, some stores weren't open or some stores weren't really buying at the time. So it was, we probably sent like 100 pitches and heard back from maybe 20 of them at first, which I think is great odds, but we were very rigorous with just like whoever the stores, we made like this master list of people, all over the country from big to small. If we knew people in certain areas, we would ask them, what stores like in LA do you think, we should reach out to? And social media was another way that we found a lot of stores. Mm-hmm. So it was very exciting and it was really kind of scrappy in the beginning. I kind of missed that energy of like, just try it, just send it to whoever. Let's see what they say. Yeah. So yeah, that was really great.
You have nothing to lose at that stage because you're like, they could just ignore me or answer me.
Exactly. And that's something, even now, that's definitely one of my kind of mantras, I guess. Like my dad would always tell me when I was younger, the worst thing somebody can say is no. And no is not so bad after all. So I'm definitely one to just, ask and see what happens. So luckily we got a lot of yeses and it was great to, start to see all these pictures of the products on shelves and like seeing people would follow us and DM and say, oh, I found out about your brand in this store. I would have had a friend that went upstate New York and sent me a picture of cards. She was like, I just went into the store and I saw your products in there. So I really love those moments. It's really exciting to, just give people this other way of discovering us.
What's crazy, SaVonne, is that this actually means the majority of your growth happened during COVID. So you are kind of like a COVID unicorn where your business exploded. And, it's funny, I am talking to more Black and brown brands that have told me that this has been the case for them. And it makes sense. It was the perfect storm. Everyone's home, can't go anywhere else. You're focused on your computer. Some negatives of the pandemic. It was also a racial reckoning happening. And during this time, we really united on our pain to have our voices heard and our lives to matter, to get our lives to matter. So during
Yeah.
this time, was this where you got a lot of your growth and
Yes.
expanded audience visibility? And who were these people coming to you? Talk to us about that time, 2020.
Right. So I quit my full-time job because I was doing just on the side for like the first, I guess like 8 months. In February 2020, I left, and less than a month later, everything shut down. And so at that point, we were making most of our money not even online. Like I said, we didn't have any wholesalers. Everything was just events and marketplaces. That's how we were making money. And, even though that's all it was, I knew at that point that, we had capacity to grow on e-commerce and wholesale and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, we'll keep doing the events and marketplaces and eventually work those things in. But once all of the events got canceled,
or you were like, I'm so scared. Did I make a mistake? Take me back, job. Take me back.
I really did not. And it was one of those things. I was like, this is nice. I get to just stay home and work on my business. Okay, that's good. Yes. I'm not going to do anything else anyway. So it was kind of bittersweet. It was definitely a little bit discouraging, to have all the events and marketplaces closed. Yeah. But I think that I'm definitely someone who is driven by a challenge. So immediately, like once that happened, I think that same week, I was like, okay, I got to revamp our website because now we need to direct traffic there. Mm-hmm. I need to get more posts on Instagram. We need to be engaging more. We need to figure out, how can we capitalize on the resources that we do have?
So you just went in pivot mode. You were able to really just pivot and say, I have the time. I know the strategy. Let me just put it to work.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. And I think I'm so grateful that that's what I did instead of waiting, because, if I waited until June to be like, oh, everything is still closed, now let me figure something out, that's months of wasted time. And so much growth happened in that time. Like in May, we grew from 5,000 followers to 15,000 followers. Yeah. Like almost, it was like within a week. We were talking. I remember I was texting one of my teammates and I was like, okay, we are at like 4,800 followers. How long do you think until we get to 5? And then like the next day we had got reposted by someone, and they had, we started getting all these followers, all these purchases, and we had hit 5,000 like that day. I was like, that's crazy.
Was this like the period of time where that day where everyone was posting the square and you were following Black brands?
That was
in that
June.
time?
No, that was June. Before that. That was in June that happened. So in May, this was just organically, like certain influencers or people, were just sharing the brand, and it was just helping. So we did that, and that was Mother's Day. So that was, I think that product was what helped us get to like that 15K. I did a card design of me and my mom when I was a kid. I turned that into an illustration for a greeting card, and it was so popular. Everyone was so excited by that. And that was exciting for me because that was one of our first designs that was illustrative, and that showed Black and brown faces. Even though we're a Black brand, a lot of our cards, they're more text-based because that's my design style. But that was the first thing that I did that was an illustration. And it was just so motivating for me to, see how receptive people were and how excited people were to see themselves in stationery in a way that feels like authentic. Because like on the card, my mom is doing my hair. So you see like the rat tail comb and like her gold earrings. So like all of those small things that feel relatable. Authentic. Exactly. So that was the perfect segue into like what you said in June, where there was this sudden kind of surge in people being interested in supporting Black businesses. So that was a very bittersweet time for me. Honestly, it was difficult for me and my team because, we're a company that is all about joy and celebration. So it's like, what do you do? How do we address these things? And for me, I'm a very, I don't talk about, things that are traumatizing to me or about racial trauma so much online anymore. It's something that I used to when I was younger. And I think that, for my own peace and sanity, I've tried to stray away from it.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for me, because it's different to do that personally and to feel the weight of the responsibility. Like at this time, we're like nearing 20,000 followers, and all of these eyes are on us. And so many people, like you said, are following us because of what's happening. So it's like, how do we navigate this in a way that feels responsible?
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely of the belief that, supporting Black business is part of the equation, because, we need wealth and we need capital to survive and to, make lives easier and to have access to, all the resources that we need. But that doesn't resolve racial violence. No. It doesn't counteract police violence, So it was difficult for me to be like, okay, this is great that people are doing it, but is this a solution?
Yeah.
So part of what we decided to do was in June, we were having like this huge increase in following and so many sales. that's still like one of our biggest sales weeks, that week that you're talking about when everyone was posting Black businesses. To this day, one of the largest sales weeks that we've had.
We hope you lap that one day and just exceed.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
we will. Yes,
we will.
You will.
Yeah. So that week, it was just so concentrated, like for a week to be like that, so busy. And at this point, I was still working out of my home. So all these orders are coming in, and I'm like dealing with like this emotional trauma. And like at the time, I'm living with my dad and my brother, so 2 Black men. It was just a lot.
It was a lot. Especially running a business, you couldn't slow down.
Yeah, you can't slow down, and that's
running people, a business, and you couldn't slow down. Your business was doing the best it ever was. So where was that time for you to internalize what was happening?
Exactly.
So how did you deal? How were you feeling, and how did you deal?
So the first thing that I did was I let my team know, if you need time, like you take the time. Like I'm gonna try to get some time in where I can, but like I'm definitely one of those bosses that I feel like I don't want people to ever feel like, work is more important than their personal well-being. So it was like, if you need a day off, if you need a few days to, take to yourself, that's fine. And the second thing was, figuring out what we can do. Like I said, getting the money doesn't solve the problems, but I wanted to figure out a way to pour those resources back into the community. So we donated 10% of all of our proceeds, not just profit, all of the proceeds for that week to 3 different organizations. So we donated money to Sustainable Brooklyn. They're an organization based in Brooklyn that helps to create sustainability initiatives in the Black community. Also, Nork Jana on Grafton. It's a urban garden here in Newark that I also work with, and they create urban farming initiatives and other business advocacy initiatives. And Snap for Freedom, based in Atlanta. They're an organization that helps Black, trans, and LGBTQ folks who are victims of police violence. So for me, and I chose all of those, of course, with intention. So like Brooklyn, Newark, and Atlanta at that time were some of the biggest hubs where people just supported us. Like we had so many customers in all of those areas. So I was like, let's pour directly back into them. Those are all these purchases are coming in, and wanting to make sure that, we're focusing on Black communities, focusing on urban communities, focusing on LGBT community. So that made me feel really good that, and it set a precedent. Awesome. Because for me, it's like, if this was within year one, like in year one, I want to set a precedent that we give back to the community, and that we're not just building on, this, we're not just talking about representation and doing things on like, the front end. It goes very deep. Like for me, and it ties back into sustainability as well. So for me, it's just really important to always be consistent with like all of the points of our mission, and to just like, no matter how big we get, to always like remain grounded in those things.
Definitely. I literally see how you were so intentional the whole time. It's really strategic, but it's also super genuine for your business. And yeah. And that's how it also will be sustainable, because these are things you don't care about today and not tomorrow, right? Exactly. It's not a trendy thing to care about these things. You have to be committed to it.
Exactly. And that's what is so exciting for me as well. It has, like last year, like, being a Black business was on trend. Now we're starting to see more companies being interested in sustainability and being green. Also more recently, people are more excited about connecting, and like they're placing more value on their relationships, because we just realize how fragile life is. So, Aya is just like we have so many different ways why people can like come to love us, whether it's about, the stationery, about being Black owned, about being like our values. There's so many different things, and it just makes me really excited to like see how many different types of people's lives that we can touch through it.
Definitely. Another milestone I wanted to touch on was when you were in retail for the first time. And I have to imagine some of them saw some of these pillars that your brand exudes early on. You are a new business technically, but you've really had some big milestones and came out hot pretty much, So talk to us about another milestone that's really meaningful for you.
Yes. So Nordstrom was the first store that we were in, first big store.
Yeah.
It was really surreal. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, even until now. being in big box retail is not a game. It requires so much work and like preparation, the logistics. So it challenged me on that. And creatively, I'm like, we got the products, we can put it together, like we have the messaging, but making sure we had barcodes, making sure everything was labeled and packaged properly, putting them in the boxes the right way so they get to where they need to go in perfect condition, learning what distribution centers were. Like, you're not sending it direct to the store, you're sending it to different places and then they go somewhere else. Like, all of that I felt like I was in a crash course, learning all of this stuff with like in a month, like having to get like a different level of business insurance, like so many things. And like that moment when you walk into the store and you see it, it was like, none of that matters. Like, this is worth it.
All worth it.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into this moment, because I know the Black on Shelf family, I call them the Boss Fam, they are going to want to know more about kind of some of that process. Because you come into this thing, you create the great product, create the great brand, and you start getting opportunities. What type of preparation kind of decouple some of the pieces for the Boss Fam so they understand what does it look like to go from making something in your house and delivering and everything like that to being ready for to being retail ready for a big box store, which is a lot of people's dream and vision. Yours happened very quickly, right? Talk to us about some of those pieces so that if someone is in this position trying to understand, what does it look like? How do I become ready? What does that look like? What is that?
Okay, very like baseline things, so that there are certain things that when the opportunity comes, if you don't already have certain things in like place, it's going to be very hard to catch up or like do it in the moment. So like, make sure you are registered, like get your LLC or whatever it is like in place. Make sure you have your EIN so that you're federally registered to be collecting money as a business, and you can make sure that everything is reported. Making sure that you have a completely separate like business bank account that's for your business, business insurance, even if you don't buy it yet, just making sure that you at least get a quote from someone, so when the time comes, you're not looking for a policy holder, like somebody to purchase it from. I think that those are like very baseline things.
Those are good.
Also, line sheet. If you don't have a line sheet, it's going to be very hard to do wholesale. Have your line sheet ready.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what a line sheet is, this is basically your selling sheet. It has all the information on the products, the details on the pricing, and how many SKUs or counts of items are in there. That's what the line sheet is, so that someone could, as an overview, see all the details of what you're offering.
Exactly. And line sheets, like when I was first doing it, when I was like just doing my Googles, I was seeing all these very extravagant big things and applications to do it. You can make a Google sheet. Make a Google sheet with a table in it, put the images and the text in, like that works perfectly fine, because you're usually going to share it as a PDF anyway. So like, just do what works for you. You don't have to overthink it. And then I would also say something that you want to like do to get ready, like your barcodes, like get your GS1 account. That is not cheap. That was one of the biggest things that I had to pay for when I had got, that first retail opportunity. They're like, okay, you need barcodes. And I'm like, that's fine, I can make them. And I think it's like $2,000 just to have an account to even create barcodes. So if you want to be in retail, set aside, the money. Like, it's so important to, have that foresight of what your expenses might be. Because, like you said, even though you're not there now, if that's something you're working towards, just like getting everything that you need together. So I would definitely recommend those things.
Yeah. Did you have a mentor? I know you said this was a crash course, but were you able to lean into a community or mentor advisor as you went through some of this process, or now do you have one?
Now I definitely have a few mentors who I can lean on for all of that stuff. At that time, not really. There was a lot of Googling, I honestly depended a lot on the retailers. Like, shout out to Team Nordstrom, Macy's, Kohls, all of them, because they were the first. Like, we got those 3 deals within like a 3-month span of each other. So they were kind of overlapping. So there wasn't even time to like learn and recalibrate to make sure we weren't doing that again. It was a lot of like learning on the go, back to back. So we definitely lean on their teams. Like, if they're sending us these, the requirements, many times I'm sending a follow-up email like, okay, please explain to me what GS1 is. What is a case pack? How many things? So like, and I had to really humble myself to not feel ashamed that I didn't know, because at this time, like, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody who I felt like, I could call to get these answers from. It wasn't until I had gotten through them that I was like, I cannot do this again. Like, I have to, like, I know I think that's something we underestimate, who we have in our network and the people who want to help us. Because as soon as I started to make those calls to people, I had so many answers and things were so much easier.
That's so good to hear. That's really good, especially the retail support you were able to get. That's great to hear, because I know sometimes well, like you said, it's definitely intimidating and you had to put your pride aside, but also that they were willing, beyond putting your pride aside, they were also very willing to help you. So that is great that coming to the table, they want you to be in there and they're willing to do a little bit of help to get you.
Exactly.
You worked super hard though. And just your questions help them help you.
Exactly. And I think that that's so important too. Like I had to tell myself, well, it wasn't really me, it was other people telling me like, they wouldn't be talking to you if they didn't think that your product was worth it, if they didn't think that you were capable. And also people know when they're working with a smaller business, they know when they're like that Black owned businesses generally have less resources. So I also think that especially in the timing of last year, like if this was 2018, they might not have been so helpful, but because, and that's what I'm so grateful for, like just having this conversation around the lack of support for Black and women owned businesses and small businesses in general. I think that it helped these larger businesses to like just be more flexible and to help people like if they can, because it doesn't, things that are just second nature to them. I think that they started to realize, so many people don't know. And if we want Black businesses to be able to come into these environments,
close the gap.
Exactly. We have to share resources. Closing the gap. Yeah, I like that. Definitely. And I was very surprised at, how willing they were to close the gap. Surprised, but very happy and grateful.
Yeah. So, talking about gratitude, I am so excited that you're now in Macy's, Kohls, Nordstrom's, a number of smaller stores too. Yes. But we said we would come back to this whole story of how you actually left your job. And I know the Boss Fam could benefit from this because it's just one of those pivotal points where you might have to make a decision at a certain point in your career. And this is also very well documented for you. I was able to watch your story. Well, you talking to yourself on your last day of work in 2019. And, it really was emotional. I could see it in your eyes. I could hear it in your voice as well. It was clearly a really heavy decision. You were at peace with it. Absolutely. But it was a big deal. And it marked something significant for you. So tell us about that moment, but also sort of the moments before. What went into you deciding I'm ready to go full time? What were the indicators for you? Was it a feeling? Was it certain metrics? And then that actual leading up to it, the final decision, you made it. And do you regret it? I think the answer is no, but we just want to hear your take on those moments and how you sort of got to that.
So leading up to it, I had made the decision in November 2019. I hadn't told anyone really, just like my closest friends. I mentioned it to just my boss. I was like, don't tell anyone else. We had that like type of relationship where I could, confide in her. So I told my boss for like, a few months, I'll give you extra time if you need me to stay around, but I'm ready. And when I picked that date of February, I was like, that's going to be my Valentine's Day gift to myself. So February 13th, day before Valentine's Day, that was my last day. And it was not, there were no real metrics. I was not someone who, saved 3 months of expenses. It was a gut feeling and it was a bet on myself. I talk a lot about betting on yourself. Whenever people ask me, how do I do all these things, or how do I have the confidence, like what makes me feel like, I can. And it's just like, if no one else believes in it, I have to. I can't expect other people, like if I'm getting to a level where, I want to be in retailers and I want to, make more money and I want this to be my main thing, other people have to see that I believe it can be a main thing, People don't really want to invest in businesses that, the founder isn't full-time in. And it was frustrating for me at first when I was thinking about that, like, oh, am I going to have to, be financially struggling in order to make this happen? And I was looking
at that's a real thought, right?
That's the main
we have to acknowledge
thing.
that. That's like a significant one.
Absolutely. And it's just like, I didn't know what was to come, but it just all worked so much in my favor. Like I ended up, when I was making this decision, I decided to move back home with my family so that, at least my cost of living wouldn't be like such a determining factor of like what I was doing. And then COVID happened. So, I wasn't really outside. I didn't really have gas expenses. I didn't really have,
it was the perfect time for you to leave.
I was on a strict budget and, it was fine. It worked for me. So yeah, it was really just a matter of betting on myself. I really wish that I had like more concrete like advice for people, because people always ask me that, and it's really just, my advice is always that only you will know. You can't expect someone else or to tell you what it is. Everyone will have a different story of, you know, what it is that made them leave. And I think that most founders will just say that, you know, they just believed in it so much you didn't want to do anything else. That was what it was for me. I was finding myself less and less motivated at work, more distracted, wanting to put more energy into Aya. And it was just like, for me to be happy and content at the end of the day and not feel drained, like I have to put all of my energy into this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so freeing. It was so liberating to do it.
Why was your last day still so emotional?
Because it was, I think that it was really, I had to choose myself and choose like my future self, really. Because it's like right now in this moment, it may not be like unbearable, but I had to think like, are you going to be happy 6 months from now in the same place? Mm-hmm. And it's like, when I thought about 6 months from that moment with Aya versus at my job, it was just like so dramatically different. Like with Aya, the possibilities were endless. It was like, if I really put all my time and energy into this and I get creative and I have other people helping me, like who knows where it could be. I definitely didn't think it would be where it was, but I was just, you know, I had to be committed to it. And if it didn't work out, I was fine with going back to a job. That was the other thing too. Like I didn't have any sort of, and still now, like if one day I'm not doing this anymore, I will not feel any sense of personal failure, because I know that I gave it my all.
And I think you were successful. You are successful. This is amazing. Yeah. You have the right to change your mind or to pivot direction. That happens.
Yeah. And I think we owe ourselves to give it a full shot. That's how I really felt. Like in order for me to really know if this is worth it, I have to try it. And if it doesn't work out, I can always, you know, do something else. So yeah, it was emotional for me because it just like signified for me making a major choice for myself that I knew would change my life. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how, but I knew it was going to change things for me. Yeah. And I have no regrets at all. None.
That's awesome. you say a lot of quotes from your dad. He seemed to have really left, well, as you grew up, gave you a lot of wisdom. What was some of his words as you were making this decision? And even today, how does he support this process for you? Is he supportive?
Yeah, when I first decided to leave, we had a conversation because, like I said, at the time I was going to live with him, and I was like, okay, I want to do this. I'm just letting you know, I'm going to put everything into this, and I don't really have a great plan. I don't have, you know, numbers to back this up. A lot of it is just, you know, I feel like it's time. I know there's potential. And he was very much like, well, okay, if that's what you want to do and you think it's going to work, go ahead. Like, and we had the same conversation of, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can always get a job again. Not a big deal. Yeah. But you won't forgive yourself if you don't try. Mm-hmm. And he told me, you know, about his own experience when he decided to, you know, I feel like in our community, if you get a government job, everybody's just like, keep your government job, get your pension. Mm-hmm. And he was a public school teacher. So, you know, he had that security and gave it up to follow his dream. And, you know, even to this day, you know, there are people who be like, oh, are you still doing that? Is your dad still doing this? And I'm like, yeah, it's been like 20 years. So
20 years strong. Thank you.
Exactly. So he kind of gave me that real talk of like, everybody's not going to believe in it. People are going to have doubts. People are not going to always, you know, support it, but that doesn't matter. As long as you do, that's the thing. And that's really helped me because, you know, he doesn't agree with all of my business decisions. I have friends and like, there are people who don't always get it, but I always remind myself, like, they don't have to. This is my dream and it's my vision. It's not like they don't have to see it now, but it is my job to, you know, keep going so that maybe one day they'll see, you know, what I was working so hard for.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, what's the biggest myth about entrepreneurship that you've experienced?
Okay, there's two. One is that if you own your own business, you're rich. Like that is the one that's like,
how Sway? Doesn't mean
all your, you know how people say all my money is tied up in investments? That's literally it. Like you may have, it doesn't matter what the account is really in. It's all in the business. Like there's not a lot of, you know,
people are like SaVonne, okay, Macy's, Nordstrom, you got it.
Yeah, and it's
Aya got it.
Exactly. Aya has it. And also it's like the day I get on shelves is not the day I get the check. Like those net 30, net 60 payment terms, like it's real. Like I was in shelves at Nordstrom in November and didn't see a check until January. And it's like, that's how it just works. And I think that's also something that I wasn't aware of, and a lot of people aren't aware of. You want to do these big things, but it requires, like I said, the money is tied up because you had to spend, $10,000 to even get in the store before you get paid for it. So
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the myths, is that there's so much, financial freedom. It requires a lot of financial discipline to be an entrepreneur, a lot.
What's the next one?
The other one I would say is that you have to work 24/7. That's one that I had to like dispel myself, because, especially during COVID, it was very easy to just work nonstop because you're home and there's not many other things to do. And I have to intentionally give myself like days where I don't have meetings, and like I just don't work on the weekends. If I have to here and there, it's an exception. Like working on the weekend is not the rule. I don't have to work at midnight all the time. Some days I do like to work late nights. I'm not really a morning person, and that's fine. But, there are other people who think you got to be up at 6 a.m. and getting your day going. It's like, if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to do that. So that's one of the big myths, is that, there's a one way and a certain schedule you have to keep in order to be successful. Like, I got in all these stores. I have a great team. I have an office. Like, I've achieved a lot. And
yes, congratulations
I'm not working
on your office too. Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, so don't work too much. Like, you don't have to work 80-hour weeks to be successful. I mean, if you like it, sure, but find time to take care of yourself, because that's part of the sustainability for me. It's like, I have to be well enough to keep the business going. If I'm not well, then how can I give anything to the work?
Snap into that.
Yes.
So pivotal. You're leading the ship. You have to have a clear mind, and you have to make rational decisions. So you need to get your rest and be your best self so that you can keep this thing going, especially as a creative. It's so much about your energy, your vibe, your mood. You have to protect that like none other.
Exactly. And I definitely feel that shift, being the creative director and CEO of the company. It's challenging because I have to use both sides of my brain. It's like one day I'm answering emails, doing spreadsheets, making decisions. And the next day it's like, create the holiday collection. And my brain is like, okay, you have not given yourself any creative exercises. You haven't been like, thinking in this way in a while. And that's why, like I said, take the day off, no meetings, just, go to a painting class. Like, those things have been more and more lately, more integral to, making sure that I'm bringing my best self to the work.
So what inspires you? Because, you are an artist, you're a creative, you're a leader as well, but your whole work is all about creating appeal and resonating with others in these moments that really matter to them through eye of paper. How do you stay inspired?
I always struggle with the question about, what inspires me, because I don't know where I heard this or saw this, but I saw something one day that said, if you had to be inspired to work, I would never get work done. Like, I'm not always inspired to do it. No. There are definitely things that I do without inspiration, just because, it has to be done. But real life is what inspires me. It's, like I said, the first collection of the cards that I did were based on my interactions with my loved ones. So being around people that are genuine and that have good intentions, and journaling and just being introspective and observing the world, and, overhearing things that people are saying, watching, like even just scrolling on social media, seeing what it is that people are struggling with and what people need. That helps me a lot with like inspiration for products. Like, we released our first 2 sympathy cards this year. And that was after like last year, me just seeing like, so many people are experiencing loss. And even if we're not directly experiencing loss of, a loved one, we're experiencing, loss of our reality and like what we thought the world was, all of our plans and hopes for the future. And that's a lot to carry around. So I wanted to create something to encourage people to, take their time and feel their feelings, and don't feel like you have to ignore it, and to just, heal at your own pace, and to provide support for each other. So that definitely keeps me inspired. Just like, keeping a pulse on what the world is craving for, what people are desiring, and how we can create things to help fulfill that.
Yeah. One thing that people may not know about you is you were an adjunct professor at your own college, right?
Yes.
What was that experience like, getting to instruct and in a way mentor students?
I loved teaching. I miss it so much. That was one of the things that COVID took away from me, which I'm very upset about. But, teaching that was my first time really, instructing a group of people. And I got that job because, I took that class when I was in school and I stayed in touch with my professor. And, she knew that, I was deeply involved in design still, after graduating and still in the city, and had an interesting career trajectory. And when she asked me to do it, I'm like, me? Why? Like, I don't have a master's. Like, what am I doing? And she's like, no, it's about like what you can provide to them. And so the class was all about professional development. And they all had to be in an internship during the class. And we talked about, what their experiences were like. They asked me questions about, how to advocate for themselves. Like if something was weird happening with the boss, like how do they address that? Talking about creating their personal brand and knowing what value they bring to companies. And this is for like juniors in college. So like, nobody has ever talked to them about, what do you really see yourself doing and how can I help you get there? So that's what I was doing a lot of with them. And it was really great. It kept me definitely inspired to, keep thinking bigger because, hearing the things that they're interested in.
Gen Z they're visionary, right? They have a lot of big dreams and goals. Yeah.
They do. They have so many big dreams and they're also they think outside of the box. And it was important for me to be in that position because, the person who was there before me, she said, I don't want to teach anymore because I'm out of touch. I'm 60 years old. I don't know what the job market is now. They're talking about wanting to be YouTubers. Like, I don't know how to support them through that. So that was really exciting to, and they were really excited to have someone closer to their age that, could understand the things that they were doing and that they felt like, they could trust. And that experience definitely helped me to build confidence with like speaking, with doing things like this, because in 2019, if you told me I would be doing podcasts and videos, I would be like,
you're doing great, by the way. Like you were meant to do this. So I guess the teaching role really
brought
it out of you.
It definitely helped me to just get comfortable with, speaking about my thoughts, about giving my opinion, and, just being prepared to use my voice in a way that I wasn't used to really doing before. So yeah, that was a really great experience. I hope I get to teach again.
We hope so too. So we talked about the vision of Gen Z, but I also am curious about the vision for Aya Paper Co. You're in year 2 and you've already done a whole lot. When you sit down and think, how can you go to your next frontier? What do you start to think about?
So the next frontier for Aya, I'm really excited about continuing to just, like you said before, about closing gaps. That's what I think about when I think of like, what Aya's purpose is and how we can bridge gaps between like design and sustainability and Blackness and gifting, like all these different industries that we're at the intersection of. We just have so much potential to innovate and make an impact. And that's what I'm really excited about doing now. Now that we've gotten our products, we have like our retailers, we have our team, like I'm constantly thinking about how we can do something that no one else has already done. So keep an eye out, follow.
We will be.
But yeah, I think that the gifting industry is not something that Black people have really been centered in, I feel like. And on the real, I feel like a lot of that is about this assumption that Black people don't have disposable income, or that we don't care about, celebrating each other, or like, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to change that and to give us ways to celebrate each other in ways that feel authentic and to help us all, be better to ourselves, be better to the earth. Like there's so many different things and it's hard. I'm getting like excited and overwhelmed thinking about them because, in my brain, there's like 100 different things. And if I can get like 5 of them to
done, right?
That'll be worth it.
It'll be worth it. So where can the Black on Shelf family follow you and Aya Paper Co? Yes.
So Aya Paper Co is on Instagram. It's just at ayapaper.co.
Yes.
Our website is the same thing, ayapaper.co. And you can find me on Instagram at simply.SaVonne.
Awesome. I always ask, what does being Black on Shelf mean to every guest? So for you, what does Black on Shelf mean to you? What is the significance?
Black on Shelf being Black on shelves is so important because it really shows people the value in what we create. I think that when I walk down the aisle at Target and I see Honey Pot on the shelves, that always makes me feel like I can do it. Someone saw value in this other Black woman's product, and now it's accessible to everyone. And that's what it is about me, is creating access and showing people that this can be a reality for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it is for me. So I get really excited when people tell me that they see it on shelves, because a lot of times it'll also be followed by, I always wanted to start my own business, or I always wanted to do this, and I saw yours and it made me, it inspired me. And that's the importance. The sales and all that is good, but it's really about just like people seeing it, whether they buy it or not. The fact that it's there, I think, means a lot.
But go buy it though.
I was going to say,
the next time you want to tell someone, thank you, happy birthday, your condolences, thinking of you. Now I exist and is accessible in other stores and online. And honestly, about this, talking about heritage, it is a good thing as we move forward to really think about making that our own practice and ritual. Do you have, I had a friend in college, her grandmother always would give her stationery and say, write me cards. Right?
Yes.
Write me cards. And I always thought it was so nice that she always had it on hand. So just the same way you always have paper towels at your house, it should literally be that type of second nature. It should be a household item. You should have stationery so that you can tell
birthday cards, thank you cards at the very minimum.
Yeah.
And so go to holiday ayapaper.co and you can buy them. And I'm going to give a discount code. So yes, you can get 15% off your first order if you use code WELCOME15, WELCOME15.
All right, fam, we got a discount code over here.
And I didn't say this before. We just are finally landing in TJ Maxx and Marshall stores. What? Yes.
You heard it here first, okay?
Yes. I'm not sure. We don't have a final location list.
Okay.
But if you're in your local TJ Maxx or Marshalls, go in there and look around for it. Ask them where the cards are. And
tag Aya so that she knows which locations it's at, and we know.
Help us out.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Is there any other news we should know about, or product that you think people should be looking into that they may not know of as yet?
Yes. Okay. So we are celebrating our 2-year anniversary in July 13th, and we are celebrating on July 11th. We're having a pop-up event in celebration. So that's going to be in New York on July 11th. You can check out our website and our Instagram for more info. So I'm really excited about that. And we will be launching. Yes, we'll be launching a new product there. I'm not going to tell y'all what it is yet.
You gotta come.
Yes, you have to come and you have to see what it is so you can get it first.
I love that. Wow. So you have a lot more in store, and we're so excited for you. Honestly, your story is so inspiring. You're also so approachable and humble, that you can't help but be excited for you and want you to win. We will be following your journey. We'll be following Aya's journey and supporting big time. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to talk to you.
So am I. I appreciate it so much.